Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So I know a lot of my recipes typically serve 4, 6, or 8 people, but today I wanted to show you how to make a really delicious romantic dinner for 2. It's my stuffed chicken breast that includes spinach, cheese, and sun-dried tomatoes. And I'll also show you how to make a super simple pan sauce to pour over the top. Let me show you how to make it. So I am working with just 2 boneless, skinless chicken breasts. And the first thing we want to do is butterfly this chicken breast. So take a very sharp knife and just cut it in half, much like a book, and then open it. But you don't want to cut all the way through. And you can help it along. There. Then you're going to place another piece of parchment paper over the top, and we are going to pound this thinly. So you want to use the flat side of your mallet as opposed to the textured side, because the flat side is going to get you a nice pounded flat piece of chicken. The textured side is good if you need to tenderize the chicken for any other recipe, but this time we're going to use the flat side, and off you go. And the idea is to elongate the chicken so we have a bigger piece to work with, and also to thin it out. Okay, then you can lift it up, and that's how it should look, nice and thin and flat. See, it's a lot more spread out and thinner, and this is just going to help when we put our stuffing inside and roll it up. All right, then you can transfer this to a plate. Then you're gonna do the same thing to the other chicken breast. Then you want to season both chicken breasts with a little bit of salt, some freshly cracked pepper, and a little bit of either herbs de Provence or Italian seasoning. Either one will do the trick. Then you want to add the cheese. So I'm using about 1/3 cup of an Italian blend cheese, but you could also use just mozzarella or provolone. I like the Italian blend because you get the gooiness as well as the flavor. And then you also want to add some chopped baby spinach. Chopping it will just make it a lot easier to roll up the chicken breast. And then try to keep a little bit of a border along the chicken. You'll see why in a minute when we go to roll it up. And then the last thing we want to add are some sun-dried tomatoes that I have also rinsed and chopped. Because a lot of times these sun-dried tomatoes compact in oil, which is great, but you don't want all that oil in the chicken breast because when it starts to bake, the oil will leak out and it'll kind of become a bit of a greasy mess. So do rinse them first and then give them a chop. Okay, that's all we have to do. All right, now this next part is a little bit messy, but not to worry. If you just keep rolling it tightly, you will succeed. So the chicken breast, we cut it sort of vertically and opened it like a book. You want to roll it horizontally because it will just help keep the filling in a bit easier. So start from one end and roll it up tightly, kind of pushing the filling into the chicken breast as you go. See how I'm like pushing the filling back into the chicken? There, and then you just want like gravity to do its work and allow it to sort of end up upside down like this. See, so you have a roll. Now comes the fastening part, and for that you want to use these long toothpicks. They sometimes call them sandwich picks. You could also tie this whole thing up with some butcher's twine if you felt like doing that. That would also work. I like the toothpicks because I feel like it's a little quicker, but you do you. Then flip it back over so you have access to the seam. Pull out any of the filling that seems to have spilled out. That's okay, you can use it for the next one. And then fasten it with a toothpick in a threading motion. So you're gonna go in one end, out the other end, almost like threading a safety pin in a piece of fabric, going horizontally on the chicken. I think it's better to do it that way than to try to go vertically. You wanna go with the roll. There, and usually 2 toothpicks will do the trick. This may not look very stable, but once it starts to cook and the chicken begins to adhere to itself, it will become very sturdy. I like to only use 2 toothpicks because if you put too many in, you just have to take them all out when you want to slice into it. So 2's kind of the way to go. And then if you feel like you have any part like this that looks like the seams are coming apart, you could add another toothpick in there. There, once you have your little bundle, you can transfer it to a plate. Then once you have your little chicken packets here, you're gonna season them again with a little bit of salt and pepper and a little more herbs de Provence. And I would do it on both sides. So give them a flip. Just be gentle because they're being held together by toothpicks. See, and if you have anything sticking out like this, like some spinach, you can just pick that off. And then also make sure that you season it on the other side as well. Next, you want to get a non-stick skillet heated on medium-high heat. And to that, you're going to add about 1 tablespoon of olive oil. Then once your pan is hot, you can add the chicken. And I like to add it seam side up so that you get a nice sear on the top of the chicken breast. There we go. And we're going to go about 2 to 3 minutes on each side, just until it's nice and golden brown. And the nice thing you'll notice is as the chicken sears, the little packets will become less fragile and it'll firm up a bit. Once your chicken is nice and browned in all sides, then we are gonna pop it in the oven right in the skillet. So make sure you're using a skillet that has a metal handle. You don't wanna put any plastic handles in the oven. And then you wanna pop it in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit just until it's cooked through. So about 15 minutes or so. Then when it comes out of the oven, it'll look like this. Now, here is a very important safety tip. Anytime you put a skillet in the oven, because what ends up happening is you take your mitts off and then you go to grab the skillet, forgetting that the handle is hot. And I cannot tell you how many times I have burnt my hand so badly doing that. So I discovered this little gadget, which is a silicone handle guard. You can get them online. I'll leave you a link in the description. And I highly recommend them for this exact purpose. Because what you do is you put the little guard on the handle because it is going to stay hot for a little bit, and I want to show you how to make a really delicious pan sauce. And while we're doing that, I don't want you to singe your hands. And it is so worth the few dollars for the burn that it's going to save you. Okay, so now there are beautiful pan drippings that are in this pan. So now we want to remove our little chicken bundles onto a carving board. Now for the pan sauce, just go along and just pick up any of the melted cheese. We don't actually want that in our sauce, but what we do want is all of that beautiful pan dripping that the chicken made. So you are gonna add a 1/4 cup of a dry white wine, like a Chardonnay would be good. There, and you see it's already sort of creating this sauce. If you don't drink, you could use a little squeeze of lemon juice. That would also be good. You just want some kind of like tangy, acidic flavor. And then I would reduce that to about 1/3, and then you're gonna add some chicken broth. We're gonna do 1 cup of chicken broth. There it goes. And then you wanna simmer this just to help all those flavors marry. And then another thing I like to add is just like a 1/4 teaspoon of mustard, little Dijon mustard. Oops, that looks like more like a half. I wouldn't add too much mustard because the wine has a lot of tang to it and so does the mustard, so you don't want to overdo it, but just enough to give it a little bit of flavor. And then whisk that up until everything's combined. And then another thing you want to add is about a teaspoon of freshly minced rosemary, just for a little more flavor. And then 2 to 3 dashes of Worcestershire sauce. Now this sauce has a lovely flavor to it, but it doesn't have the right consistency. It's a little too runny. We want to thicken it a little bit, and with that we're gonna use a cornstarch slurry. And all that is a tablespoon of cornstarch with a tablespoon of very cold water. That's one of the tricks with a cornstarch slurry is you have to use very cold water going into a very hot liquid. Otherwise it does not activate. And then just give that a stir so that you have a nice little solution on your hands. Now, because this skillet is not very deep, when I put this cornstarch slurry in here, it could thicken very quickly. If it thickens too much, then just thin it out with a little bit more chicken broth. All right, here we go. And I wouldn't dump the whole thing in at once. I would just do it a little bit at a time. There, and you can see it thickening right away. It's almost like turning into a little lumpy paste here. So that means you have to turn down the heat. There, and see how fast that thickened? Because this pan is so shallow and the heat is so close to the liquid. But that's great, that looks delicious, look at that. And at this point, really turn it down to a low simmer, otherwise it will just keep thickening. But see, this is great. This is the sauce consistency that you want, where it's still liquidy, but has a nice little velvety texture to it. And then at this point, you wanna taste it. Let's see. Oh, that's delicious. I would not add any salt and pepper to this because there was so much seasoning on our chicken that it seasoned our sauce. But you taste it, and if you feel you need it, by all means. Now, here's how you plate this. Before you slice into it, you want to remove the toothpicks. So we are just going to turn this over and slide these picks right out. And sometimes they really get stuck in there, so you got to give them a tug. And then I like to slice it on the diagonal because I think it looks a little bit prettier that way. And then you can see the delicious filling inside and that beautifully tender chicken breast. And then I like to serve this with my foolproof roasted potatoes, and I will leave you the recipe in the description. And if you have an air fryer, even better. They work out so great in the air fryer. And then you don't need your oven to play double duty. But if you had to use the oven, I would just put the potatoes on the bottom rack, keeping them warm while you cook through the chicken. You can plate your chicken splayed out like that. And then the final step is just to add a little bit of drizzle of the pan gravy all over the top. And there you have it, a delicious dinner for two that is easy and elegant. I hope you guys give this one a try and let me know what you think. And be sure to sign up for my newsletter, and that way you won't miss an episode. The link is in the description. I'll see you next time. Bye.